for a motion for a resolution. Resolution is needed in these cases because it helps in the point scoring. In this case, we were approached again, and I came to a realization we're probably going to be approached every year, point blank. There's a void in our community. It's a mechanism for developers to be able to put forth a very nice product and meet the needs, certain needs. So we went, we've had a preliminary meeting, Jennifer and I can't remember who all was in that original meeting, but we had an original meeting, and then we took up the opportunity to go on a field trip. All the council members went. We went to 2 properties, and it was, what we saw was favorable, so it made us go to the next step. And the next step in my mind, and I'll tell you where I'm wanting to get with this. Next step in my mind was to get, we're pretty much just sitting at this table, and behind us the policymakers here for the city. That's what the people elected us to do. And to do as we've done in the past, wrap our heads around this and look and make sure and see that this is a viable option for our city, and basically vet it out, understand exactly what this is we're talking about, and see if it's where we want to go. So that's the project here, because I saw that this going to continually happen year after year after year, and if it's something that the committee wants, then by all means let's do it. If it's not, then I can tell them I'm sorry. We've tried this 2 or 3 times, and it just doesn't get the support. So that's why we're here. And so this organization is out of Austin. They are. These are the properties. Alpha Barnes is a management company that this company would utilize, and that's who manages the 2 properties that we went to go visit back in December. So, so with that, I'll let Matt take it over. If you're ready,
Thanks,
Matt.
Mayor Gregory. I appreciate it. So, guys, my name's Matt Long, and I'm with Cayetano Housing. I'm here with my 2 partners. I'm here with Kendall Bennett, and I'm here with Laura Myrick. And I'm going to take about 10 or 15 minutes and talk to you guys about a project, an affordable community that we'd like to build here in Vernia. Yeah. So to get started, I'd like to tell you a little bit about who we are. So as I mentioned, we're Cayetano Housing. We're developers. We're based in Austin, Texas. We've been doing residential subdivisions for about 20 years. About 3 years ago, we moved into multifamily, and now our focus is specifically on tax credit multifamily. So what exactly is the tax credit program? The tax credit program is a federal program that encourages private industry to invest in and develop affordable housing. All right, and the gist of it, what it does is it enables developers to build Class A accommodations and then rent them out to tenants at sub-market rents. A couple of key things that I want you guys to keep in mind as I go through this presentation is that lower rents does not equate to lower quality tenants. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And lower rents also does not equate to lower quality construction. And so at that point, I'd like to transition to a few existing tax credit communities in the area that are similar to the one that we would like to build here in Vernia. One is called the Meadows at Bentley. It's in San Antonio. And another is called Babcock North. It's also in San Antonio. These are very similar to the type of community we like to build here. They have a very strong emphasis on masonry, and I understand that's an important component of building here in Gregory with y'all's building requirements requiring 75% masonry on the outside. Another community that I'd like to point out is right over here on the left on the board. And this is a community that Cayetano Housing is getting ready to start construction on down in George, West Texas. So that's about, you guys probably know, about an hour and a half away from here, down a little bit south of Three Rivers. The site plan here will be very similar to what we want to construct here in Vernia. You'll notice here it's an offset road back to 3 buildings, same size, very similar exterior, 2-story. So let's look at the the product that we'd like to put here in Lavernia. It's called Cayetano Villas. It's 48 units. It's 2-story garden style, which means that the units open up to the outdoors. They have balconies on them. It will be a gated community, so it'll be completely private with private parking. As I mentioned, it'll have masonry exterior. It'll have a clubhouse for residents to use, as well as a playground. And it'll be a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The location is on 1346, so if you're coming down 87 and you were to turn right on 1346, you'd go about half a mile and you would pass the Grace Church, and the next site would be our location. The zoning for this site is C1 retail, which, based on my understanding of y'all's code, and Mayor Gregory, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it does allow multifamily, and it does not require a special use permit.
I shake my head, yes, I believe you're right, I would have
That's
to.
correct.
Yeah, I thought so, but I always like to go back and double check.
Well, we can double check that,
Yeah.
but, so we should be set up to be able to move forward without having to request any kind of special zoning, without having to go notify neighbors, that sort of thing. And then, this is an example, this is the site plan that we have worked out. As you can see, it's very similar to the one we have in George West. A couple of things I'd like to point out here. Number one, we are providing a setback of right now about 100 feet from the property behind us to give the people behind us some privacy. And then we're also providing a setback off 1346 of about 400 feet to make the environment more quiet and peaceful for the residents. And then the target market. I'd like to take this opportunity to explain the difference between tax credit communities and Section 8 housing. Right? So Section 8 housing it's a HUD program, whereas tax credit communities are part of the IRS. Right? Section 8 housing targets persons who make from 0 to 30% of median gross income. Tax credit communities target persons that make from 30% median income all the way up to 100% median income. So to give you an idea of the breakdown of persons that would live here, about 10% of the people that live here would make about 1/3 of your average income, right? The 75% of the people would be median income, right? So they would make 50 to 60% of adjusted median gross income for this area, right? So that means that, and then the remaining 15% would be market rate units. So to talk about it in more layman's terms, 10% of your people are going to be on limited income. That'll be like your elderly people who have restricted income, maybe they're living on Social Security, or maybe young people in their first job. And then 75% of the people are going to fall right in here to city employees, teachers, firemen, that sort of thing. And then your upper 15% will be your oil and gas engineers, that sort of thing. And then as far as management, we will hire a professional management company that's based out of Dallas, has offices in San Antonio named Alpha Barnes. They will put a manager full-time on site. They will take care of all the maintenance. They will take care of all the screening of tenants. They will do background checks, criminal background checks on everybody that lives in the facility. And they will also take care of maintenance of the property, mowing the grass, ensuring that tenants adhere to the rules with regards to having extra things outside of their houses, of their units. And then the benefits to Lavernia. This is a $7 million project overall. The construction contract for this project will be about $5.5 million. The majority of this $5.5 million will be sourced locally through local contractors. So other benefits to the city would be recurring tax revenues. We're estimating that this will generate about $35,000 in tax revenues a year for Lavernia. It will create some permanent jobs. We'll have a permanent manager. We'll have a permanent maintenance person. We'll be a permanent office administrator. It'll also create temporary jobs during construction, somewhere between 60 and 75 temporary jobs during construction. And then there'll be permitting fees and, of course, sales revenues to the town. And then what we need from you guys, this is a competitive process, meaning we're going to be competing with other communities in the San Antonio and the New Braunfels area to win the credits to be able to build this community. In order to earn the points, in order to win, there are two things we need. We need a resolution of support from you guys. Basically, this is just a written declaration stating that you do in fact want this in your community. The second thing we need is a commitment of financial support. The amount that we need from you guys is $7,965. How this was determined, there's a formula that the department provides to us. It takes the population within the city limits, which we calculated at 1295. You multiply that times the number of affordable units, which will be 41 out of the 48 units will be affordable, and then you multiply that times 0.15, right? And we come up with 7,965. There are several different ways we could structure the financial commitment from Vernia. What we would recommend, and what's been the easiest, has been to do a deferment of fees. And how this would look is, let's say for example there were $7,965 in fees, maybe impact fees that we pay to the city. Instead of paying these all up front, what we would do is we would structure these in a loan. So we would sign a promissory note to you guys, and we would pay you guys the $7,965 over time with interest until you repay the full amount back. And that may seem kind of a strange thing to do for such a small amount, but that is simply because it is a scoring item. It is a requirement for us to get the points in order to win the tax credits. That makes sense? So that is all that I have for the presentation. Do you guys have any questions for me or for any of my team about the community?
So when you say low rent, my experience with that is like the tenants pay $200 and the rest comes from like federal government or what?
No, that would be, I guess, like a voucher program. So with this, tenants will pay the full amount of rent, whatever it is, and there will be no additional subsidies coming from the government. The rents for this project will range from $300 for a one-bedroom to around $850 for a three-bedroom. The reason we can charge such low rents without coupling them with subsidies is because of the way the program works. A development is awarded tax credits that are worth about 70% of the cost of constructing the project. So we take those tax credits and we sell them to private investors that need tax relief, and we take the proceeds from those tax credits, and that gives us 70% of the cost of the project. And so essentially we're building the project with only about a third of the money that would normally be required for a project, so we can charge much lower rents.
And Donnell, one of the big questions I had last year that really never was truly answered, and I've gotten a lot more comfortable with what I've heard back is my thing is, and it should be all of our thing, is who are we helping, in our community? I know they pointed out, the retired, people, and I'm sure every one of us sitting around this table or sitting over here knows that those are somebody that would probably fit that model. I tend to look at, we're a high retail type of environment as far as jobs currently right now in Vernia. For retail jobs, they basically pull anywhere from $10 to $15 an hour.
Right.
And, that's kind of, again, that's an area that, that person would benefit from a project like this. And it's my interpretation, and I hear this, and I've heard this, and I even put this out in the paper. So I was telling Brittany as we were going across the street, I'm a little disappointed that, it's just us here in this room right now, because I really fully expected to have a lot more folks here with opinions, because that's the whole deal. We're trying to get the interest up to get some opinion, but my feeble mind, I look at Section 8 as entitlement versus this program as being a privilege. And there's a big difference. So
Nobody can live in a community that cannot prove employment, right? That cannot improve their employment, their income levels. So you don't have persons that are out of work living in the community.
Is that a one-time process, or how often are they requalifying to continue to stay in the
complex.
Hey, Laura?
That is
Laura worked on the
annually.
compliance side.
Okay.
For all the
An
time,
annual,
so-
Yes, the annual certificate, well, there's an initial certification process, and then you have an annual recertification process. And what you do there is you are ensuring that the income levels are still the same, or if someone has to be redesignated. Someone may have gotten promoted, and they are, maybe they started out at a 50%er, but now they've been promoted to a supervisory position, so now they're at a 60%. And so there are set-asides that we need to meet, as Matt was talking about the various income levels, but there is an annual income process, and that will be explained at the very beginning. When folks come up to you, be part of the community, everything will be laid out, everything will be in writing. They have the ability to ask questions at any point, and even after they sign their lease, anytime the management company is there to answer questions about their upcoming recertification or anything about income levels or rents.
And the program's designed so if they have, their income does increase, it doesn't penalize them.
That
Like
is
they don't
correct.
have to move out if they make too much. And
they would just have to pay 100% maybe.
well, not
instead of-
necessarily. It kind of depends. Like if they got a promotion and their income goes up, $2,000 for the year, or even up to $5,000, it's designed so it can go up to 140% over whatever the limit was when they moved in.
Okay.
Now, since there's gonna be market units at this property, say their income, say now they married someone that works in the oil field, and now their income has dramatically increased. They could still live there, but then they would pay the market rent instead of the lowered rent, so.
What if, as you say, the oil fields, what if their income drops?
Then if there is something available at the lower rent, then they can move into a unit at the lower rent.
They would have to physically.
So they would have to, well, not necessarily, it depends, there's a lot of, if it's in the same building, there's some very specific rules with that.
Mhm.
But generally, they have to income qualify, so if somebody came in and said, I lost my job, or I was injured on my job, and now I'm on workman's comp, and that's my only source of income, we've gotten that before. Or I'm on short-term disability or something like that, then they would bring in that kind of income, and if we had something available in that
Okay.
building or in that designation, they may not even have to move.
Right.
But if not, then we would, allow them to move, or if we don't have one available, put them on the list, so when the next one comes up, there's a whole kind of system in place.
If there is a way to do it administratively, we would much rather do that, as I'm sure the resident would rather do
Right,
that as well.
right.
Yes.
The two sites that we visited and spoke with both managers, they both told us that the company pretty much has a zero tolerance on problem tenants, that like one strike and you're out. that
Yeah,
if,
well, we have a zero tolerance policy. We have our lease, we use the Texas Apartment Association lease, so that has a lot of the rules and of course any criminal activity or things like that, but we also on top of that have additional addendums to the lease, and one of them is our zero tolerance policy, and it basically says any criminal activity, drug activity, alcohol abuse, anything that threatens the health or safety of staff or other residents is cause for eviction. And so everyone signs that when they first move in. And so if we do ever have any issues, we have a document that's signed, so if we do have to proceed with eviction, we're able to do that. So,
I'd like to share this because one of my neighbors that we live not far away from there came over and asked me about it today, and they're a little bit concerned, and I tried to explain what this wasn't to
yeah.
them, and, they trust that whatever I would support would be okay for the community.
Well-
And what we were also told was that some of the places had established prominence by how many non-running vehicles are in the parking lot. They said 24 hours, they're gone.
Yeah.
And I noticed that at both of the other places also, they had someone there that, very nice interiors of the administrative building were very nice. That they had rooms where kids could come and do their homework after school. I think they even had some computers there that they could use. But I see there's only gonna be 3 employees, I'm assuming that's full-time employees. But they had, I don't know if she was an aide, but they had someone there to help the kids with their homework.
Right.
And that's a big plus for parents that don't get home till 6 o'clock, especially when it gets dark at 5, to have somewhere for those kids to go. Would this facility have the same thing?
It does have a learning center. Each facility is a little different. The ones that you visited, they do have, like when they apply for the tax credits, they are required to say, we're gonna provide after-school programs, or we're gonna provide toddler time or wellness, education or things like that. And so we actually keep a booklet of those activities that we provide. We have, like at those properties that you visited, we have potluck and bingos, we have craft night, we have movie night. We have after-school programs for the kids where they can come in and get tutoring, get help with homework. They have computers. It's not considered a daycare, but it's, you know, just it's an amenity that residents can use. It's free to all the residents. We even work with the community at some of those, like one of them is by the YMCA. So we work with the YMCA if we want to do an exercise program or things like that. So we're able to work with the businesses that are around there. And the whole goal is everyone kind of has a certain connotation of affordable housing. We all know that. And so the goal is to provide quality affordable housing. Just because you don't work in the oil field or have that income doesn't mean that you have to live in somewhere that's not as quality as anyone else. And so we have people that'll come in all the time and be like, this is affordable housing, I make too much to live here, or, because some of them, if we don't have any market units available, then we don't have anything. And so it's funny, most people would be like, oh, I don't want to live on an affordable housing property. But our goal is to show that, you know, that anyone can live there, regardless if they're on a fixed income, 30% of the income, or if they're a market, and to have everyone live in that community and not just solely one particular social class or financial class or things like that.
So this facility would have an after-hours, something for the kids?
It would have a learning center, so it has like a clubhouse area like what you saw at Bentley and Babcock, so it would have something like that, yes.
Yeah, I was gonna
Those
ask if y'all
apartments
even formulated what kind of programs would be. I know y'all say it gets tailored to whatever the community is.
We'll
Sorry to hear all
be
the
putting that
comeback.
together, and we're completely open to feedback from you
No,
guys.
Carol, I'm sorry.
The-
I'll get
Go ahead.
Harold was finishing up the
The
comment.
apartments that we looked at, the units over there I was surprised, they were really nice.
Well, and I would like to say that on the zero policy, the zero tolerance policy, that is something that you are able to do through the tax credit program as well. Matt kind of talked about the differences between HUD and housing tax credit programs. With HUD, and I've worked with several of those programs over the years, there is a grievance process. There is a long, drawn-out process about you go to one grievance, you go to a second grievance, and then you go to a final grievance, and someone can actually say, well, they're fine, they can stay there. That's not what you have with the housing tax credit program. It is a zero tolerance policy, and when we say that it's important to us who lives there, it is. From the management company to the owner. We don't want just to build apartment complexes, we want to build communities where people feel a sense of community within the complex itself, and to have activities that will make a strong community.
That'll be a big selling point with people that are gonna hear something, but think of something different. So a zero tolerance is,
When you say zero tolerance,
admire that.
law enforcement, if we get a call there for disturbance, that doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna get evicted. And we get a call for disturbance, you can arrest somebody, doesn't mean they're gonna get arrested, or they're convicted. When you say zero tolerance, do you mean they get called,
Right,
they get
so,
arrested, or they get convicted?
so it's zero tolerance, like if there was a noise complaint, for example, and you had to go out there for a noise complaint, and we got it reported, we would lease violate for something like that, we would lease violate and let them know that this is a violation of the lease. And if 3 lease violations can lead to eviction. So if it's something that we talk to them, we lease violate them, tell them, hey, this needs to be taken care of, and it stops after that, then we wouldn't proceed with eviction. If it continues and they're, violating that every weekend, or they're having parties, then if we will lease violate them again and say, okay, that you've already been warned, or say they were arrested because there was drugs found at a party or something like that, then that would be a violation of the zero tolerance, and then that would lead to
So
eviction.
zero tolerance, just leave it in zero tolerance.
So, yeah, so if it's like a noise complaint or something like that, and we lease violate and counsel them on it, and give them an opportunity to improve, then we would do that. It wouldn't be like, okay, we're gonna evict you for any little thing. But if it's a criminal activity and someone was arrested, then more than likely we'd issue them a notice to vacate.
Yes, my question is, over the years, I've seen it in San Antonio, brand new apartment complexes even, and when it first built, everything's great, but then 5 years later, I don't know if they changed hands all the time, what's to prevent right now, all this good stuff you're telling us, what's to prevent, I don't know, y'all change hands or something like that, and the next owner of the complex doesn't have a maintenance man on site, doesn't enforce any of the rules.
Well, the tax credits kind of, I mean, we get monitored by the state regularly. And so they'll come in and they'll monitor our files to make sure that we income qualify everybody. So when someone moves in, we have to make sure that they qualify. They have to have verifiable income. So you won't have someone coming in that has shady income to move in there. And then they do a physical inspection of the property at least every 3 years if you do well. If you do poor, they'll come every year to do an inspection. So the state, even if Alpha Barnes or the original developer or owner sold it for whatever reason, it's not as easy as, oh, someone else buys it and now whatever you do with it, you do with it. The state is still involved because there's tax credits involved, there's lenders involved that if we don't pass an inspection or we fail to maintain the property, then they lose the tax credits and all that money that they put into it. So there's lenders that come and do their own inspections. These properties are inspected sometimes 3 times a year by the city, by the state, by the lenders. So there wouldn't be, I mean, we've never had that issue, obviously, but even if there was somebody that took over a management company that maybe was not as familiar or was not as great as Alpha Barnes is, there's so many other checks and balances in place that they wouldn't be able to let it run down without the state getting involved.
And just real quick, and is this something new, the tax credits? I mean, I've heard of Section 8, you know, but is this something new within the last 10 years or something the government came up with, or
The
no?
tax credit program was under Ronald Reagan in 1986.
Okay.
And so it's been on the books since 1986. And a few years ago, it was threatened that it was going to go away, but there was too many lawmakers nationwide that said this is the most successful housing program out there for affordable housing. There is less than 1% foreclosure across the nation. To kind of piggyback on what Celine also said is, it is very difficult for the 3 of us to just turn the property over. We sign a land use restriction agreement for 35 years. We are your neighbors. We are part of your community for 35 years. And for the Internal Revenue Service to let us out of that is not going to happen.
You own the complex, but you don't manage it. Am I understanding?
We do not manage it. We
Hire a
are
management
going to, yes, hire a management company. And this management company has been around for years. I worked for the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs for 12 years, and their management style, everything about them was just top notch, and that is why we chose them now that I'm out in the private sector.
Danielle?
So that's basically what my question was what is, I guess, the percentage of the properties that Caetano continuously holds on to versus selling them off? Because, yeah, that's what I'm looking at is, what if you build this and then you sell it off and you don't have this Alpha Barnes managing it? What assurance does the city have that it's not going to be an eyesore for our community or a problem child for our police department?
Absolutely, and as Laura said, legally we can't sell it, right? We
So
cannot.
for 35 years, y'all have it, but what's after that? Y'all have the option to sell, or what?
At that time, the land use restriction agreement will expire. A lot of the lenders will be paid, everything will our obligations will stop, because that's more than likely when everything will come to an end. That's the expiration date. We will more than likely come back and talk to the city about what are our next steps, what do we do?
Well, 35 years, what's the average lifespan of an apartment complex anyhow? At the end of 35 years, likely something different is going to be happening.
That's right, it falls into some.
I mean.
True.
That's right, it would become a candidate for rehabilitation. What's happening with a lot of the older buildings that were started when President Reagan first started the program, the time was much less, 15 or 20 years, and they're going back to the department, and they actually get priority for tax credits to go back in and renovate some of these older buildings. So a lot of people that were in this program from the very beginning are going back, getting new tax credits for renovations.
Right, let's say that 20 years goes by and there's a lot of improvements that have been made. You know, there's opportunities to make it even more green and put great appliances in there and renovate it for the community. We would have the ability to go back in and put more money into it.
Regarding, okay, so every year we're looking at their income qualifications. How often are we looking at background checks? At the
Same
same
time.
annual, so it's all part of an
It's
encompassing
all part of
annual
the
review of.
recertification process.
A kid is getting out on their own and under mom and dad had a DWI or something like that. Would they qualify for this sort of housing? You know,
Yeah, a
you've got
DWI
those,
usually.
you know, that,
Yeah, if it's a DW, we look to see if there was, the trend. So if there was just a DWI and it was just one, like when they were a kid and they come in and say, I had a DWI when I was 18 and, then usually that's not gonna deny them. We check credit, criminal, and rental history, so we kind of look at it as a whole. Now, if there's 3 DWIs and then there's, other things, then that may be cause for denial. So it's hard to say if DWI is approved or not. Now, if it's
just as an
after 3, it
example, I
turns
mean.
into a felony, so generally, if it's a felony, it would be denied. But if it's one, it was a long time ago, there's positive rental history, positive credit, and other, nothing else since then that application would probably be approved.
Y'all have a set of rules, but can Alpha Barnes override? Can the manager come in and say, I talked to this person and I'm okay with that, so this says this, but I think he's a good risk. Can that happen?
No, we actually have a system in place. There's there's 2 different ones. One is the credit reporting. They cannot go in and approve a credit report, only a regional supervisor or above can. So if a manager is trying to get their friend to move in or something like that, there has to be an approval. And then the system that we use to track rent and to actually keep track of everything has to have a supervisor approval before they can even move them in the system. So there's not a way for them. Now, if they came to us and they said, hey, we have an applicant that went through a divorce, she has poor credit, she broke her lease because she was going through a divorce, but she has positive, she has a full-time job and things like that, then those types of things they would get with us and then we would see if we can work that out and improve that, or maybe require an additional deposit or something like that. But they couldn't outright approve an applicant. And
Or require somebody to sign for them, someone that'll vouch for them, someone that'll come in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Marlon, I'm gonna pick your brain real quick. Post-oak, didn't that start off back in the 70s as a housing?
It was
Uh,
the 70s.
What was the origins?
Because it was new when I was still in
Yeah,
high
it's
school.
old as I am.
It was like late 80s.
Late 80s?
Mid to late 80s.
But was it a market project, or was it subsidized in any form?
Subsidized, wasn't
I don't think that it started out subsidized, though. I think that it just kind of changed hands and became that because, well,
it was low rent.
it probably was subsidized now that I
It
think
was.
about it, yeah. It used to be really nice when it was first built, and now it's,
Ain't no more.
no.
You that work with this group, would you be willing to live in one of these communities yourself? Would you
Yes.
move your family into one of these apartments?
Yes.
I have one that I manage in Somerset that I always tell my husband, like, if you die before me and when I retire, that's where I'm gonna move. Because it really does have the community and the after-school programs and the computer labs and stuff like that. I mean, it's not, and I wouldn't put other people somewhere that I wouldn't be willing to put my own parents or for me to live.
My brother-in-law and his wife, came into town and didn't know what to do, and they have 2 little kids. I pointed them to one of the properties that are in the program. They love it, and a lot of it is because of the after-school programs that are available and some of the amenities and facilities that are there. And I would not steer my own family if I did not feel comfortable with this program.
Mark?
I have an uncle
Yes,
that lives up
one
there.
more question. Isn't it hard to enforce? How do you enforce, a young family moves in, 1 or 2 children, need help, so they get the tax credit and all that. Next thing you know, you can't, there's 7 or 8 people living in that apartment.
Oh, yeah, that's part of the occupancy requirement, so there is an occupancy requirement as
Okay.
well. So
That's easily enforced?
yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, and then because we have physical inspections, we can usually catch that pretty quick.
Okay.
They shared with us that they had some really long-time tenants at the one on Bentley that had been there for a long time, and that the occupancy rate was usually 95% plus. Is that pretty much a standard in most of your properties?
Yeah, I actually opened Bentley when it was under construction, and there's residents that I moved in there when we first opened that still live there. So we have a lot of long-term residents at most of our properties. And what was the second part of your question? About the long-term
You're
residents
challenging me
and,
now.
I'm sorry.
The occupancy.
Oh, yes, the occupancy, especially for the ones for the 30%, like the fixed incomes. Those go so fast because there's so many people that are fixed income. We have a lot of veterans at Bentley because it's by BAMC and by the bases around there. So those really low rents, I mean, they go so fast. I mean, we a lot of times have a contact list, so when something comes up, we'll call and, you know, they go super duper fast. So 95%, usually 97, 98%
Yeah.
at those two properties.
Yeah.
We'll have to forgive them, they make fun of me. 'Cause
Sorry.
Your brain derailed, there were no
I was like, I know there was
survivors.
another part to that question that I was gonna answer.
One thing, oh, go ahead.
What is the percentage of market versus the other rates? What percentage of the 42 units?
So it'll be 7, so about 15%, a little bit between 15 and 18%, will be market rate. 10% would be the lowest tier, and then 75% will be people who make between 50 and 60% of adjusted meters.
So if you have people coming in willing to pay market price, you're not going to be taken out of the other pool
We can't.
to supplement that?
It's required that we put persons that are appropriate to that income level.
So conceivably, you could have someone who could afford to live there who was turned away because they're.
That's actually a real common scenario.
Right. Biggest challenge to coming to a demographic like Vernia, what would that be?
I don't see one, I don't know.
I don't either, yeah, I'm not sure.
Is your question from a leasing standpoint?
Just from developing the project and coming to fruition?
I think the biggest challenge is overcoming the perception of affordable housing.
Yes.
Anytime we go into a new community, that initial education is always difficult because it gets in the papers, you look at, they're gonna build a Section 8 housing. I think once people understand it and they see it, and I can tell you there's a number of times that once the first one's built, the communities are going back and saying, can you build us another one? Just because it's such a successful program. But the biggest challenge is that initial perception. And it's something that, I think we do a good job educating people, trying to coordinate tours like you took with the Councilman Gregory. But there are going to be people that didn't go on that tour, that aren't in this room, that are going to voice concerns. And it's just kind of part of the process. Do you agree with that?
Yes,
I do.
yes. And I've been working in this 25 plus years, and that's still the probably biggest question that I still get to this day.
And I agree, you go in the coffee shop and you say, hey, we're gonna have a workshop tonight on affordable housing. No,
Right.
even a low-income person would immediately say, no, not in my town,
Maybe a town hall meeting would be nice, you think that would be warranted?
We can try, I mean, like I said, I wrote an article that was kind of geared to a catch-up article, but, this was firmly planted in that article, and out of everybody sitting in this room, I see one face that's sitting here that, wasn't with one of the companies and not on P&Z or city council,
And
so.
we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I really do.
Yes.
Obviously,
I'm a resident of Silverado Hills,
okay.
so,
Would you like to add to our conversation?
well, I'm not opposed to affordable housing at all. I'm just concerned, like I've heard some people say, of the management of the housing, the complex, so that we don't end up with an eyesore. I mean, it sounds like it's gonna be very close to the subdivision that I live in. And, and has there been any discussion about how it might impact the school? Because you're talking about possibly another couple hundred kids with 50.
It's only
apartments.
48 units. On average, how many kids, what's it?
Well, if it's 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, the families would probably be the 3 bedrooms, I would assume. So, it's basically, I don't know what the target market is. In Vernia, the people that are working in Vernia, the people that already live here and already have their kids in school,
Are gonna be the ones that.
are, I would think, would be the ones that we're looking to market and to target to.
And that has been our experience. That's been a question we've been asked a lot. And what we have seen in the years that I've worked in this program and in some HUD programs, with this program, what I've seen is that they're already here. People that will live in those in the communities that we build are already here. They have an option now, which is what we want to bring to them. We want to give people choice. And so if this is a better option for them, that's what they're going to do.
And kind of just to clue you a little closer into how I viewed this, and it's, and I've told people, I'm sitting right here, right now, you know, we work for the citizens, that's who we work for. And so our job is to basically enact what our citizens want. Lots of times, and Harold said it time and time again, you know, we have crickets at our city council meetings because, and as he likes to say, you know, I like to feel that people think we're doing a good job up here, that the water comes on, the toilets flush, and, you know, the cops respond whenever somebody's having a party. Anyway, but what I do see around our community is the fact that I think the council and P&Z, you know, a lot of people talk, oh, it's gonna bring this element, it's gonna bring this element. We're so proactive as a group, not an organization, but as a group, that we went through hard, painful steps to enact some legislation within our city that keeps a lot of the really cheap-built housing projects out.
I've been following all that.
That in itself, if you look at an evolution of some of those housing development areas and how quickly they turn, you know, it starts off looking okay, within 5 years, it's foreclosure, you know, unqualified people in there, you know, to begin with. You know, the element that I think that, you know, some of the things that I think we're afraid of, that could have happened had we not taken that. So, you know, rest easy that we're looking at this hard, and we're not here to make rash decisions, but the point that, you know, I've heard from this group, we didn't hear it last year. Last year we sat in a meeting, y'all, and people were firing away, and we had a representative sitting there. I made eye contact with her several times, she never said a word. And so I had no qualms whatsoever of just, I was happy that we had no motion as far as the resolution goes. Happy as pleased as punch, because, you know, if you don't believe in it, and you're not here to sell it, and to provide all the answers to the questions that we're asking, then, you know, we don't want you here anyway. Kind of thing. So
Just didn't look like a place that we wanted here.
yeah, but the real big void, or what I see, is you do have a lot of people that are struggling, and if you, because of our location and our geographics to the Eagle Ford play, you talk about extorted rent rates that people are paying for dumps. And to me, we're not here to serve one level of citizen, we're here to serve all levels of citizens. And I think that's what our job truly boils down to. So that's why I wanted to, let's go through this, let's look at it. If we all believe it's good for our community, we're gonna move forward, because we all have to sleep with this decision too. And we live here.
But I think we owe some of our citizenry an affordable place to live. It's unfortunate that low-income wage earners have to leave their kids in town and come out here to serve us in whatever capacity they choose to serve us in, but we can't offer them an affordable place to live, and that's not fair. You know, we want the services that they provide, we should have some housing for them too.
Yeah, I had 4 citizens sitting here a week ago Monday night about a different subject, and they, at the end of our conversation, what we were meeting about, they kicked off into this, oh, we saw this is gonna happen, and so on and so forth, and one of them popped off and said something about Section 8, and I said, okay, let me ask you a question. You just moved here, now you don't want anything else to move in here, and yet you wanna go to, name a sandwich shop, name a restaurant here, and you've got somebody sitting there working that's, you know, waiters, waitresses, they may pull $20,000, whatever it is. And that was my big deal. Who are we helping? That, you just hit one. You just, you know, we just threw a dart, hit the bullseye there.
We've got some hardworking paraprofessionals at school who
Yeah.
cannot afford to live in the community where they work and want their kids in our school district. They need an affordable place to live.
So that's one of the big reasons why we're looking hard at this, just to let you know.
This group has been very focused on the vision of what do we want the town to look like 10 years from now. 20 years from now, this is the last stopping place for probably everybody at this table. And we're very aware that junk attracts junk and nice things attract nice things. And we look at everything pretty critically before we put a seal of approval on it.
You know, I love what you're all doing with.
I live as close, I'm gonna live as close to it as you are. And,
Yeah,
but-
closer.
But we were, the ones that we looked at, we were impressed not only with the way they were managed, but the grounds and the apartments, and it's a far cry from what I went over there expecting to see.
The amenities of the apartments too, we're top of the line, you know, just, I wouldn't mind living in one.
I have a question about taxes. These units, will they be put on the tax roll at 100% market value, whatever the appraisal district sets neighboring facilities?
They will be put on the tax roll, but the value will be based on the value of the business, the apartment complex as a business, right? And it would be taxed as if someone were gonna come in and buy it and lease it out, and then what kind of income it could generate. And so the value of it will be lower than what you would expect if you just looked at market value for a regular apartment complex. But it will be, the units it will be taxed and generate about $35 grand a year in revenues for the city.
So it's appraisal district just looks at it as any other commercial
That's right.
property,
Yes.
basically.
Yes.
Yeah, because that was one of the whole hard parts of going through the whole masonry stuff was how that affects the tax roll. And we actually had the chief appraiser come out and did a ride around the city, and it was educational. We went to her house and we went and looked at a business, and he goes, well, businesses are it's not the price of the building so much as it is what kind of revenue can that bring, so.
One other detail I wanted to share with you guys is that, I think it's important that you guys understand this, is that the pre-apps for this process were submitted and the results came back, and 5 different cities submitted applications for Region 9, which is what you guys are in. They all wanted tax credit communities, and you guys are in first place. And so, if you want the community, this is the year to go forward with it, because the rules change every year. And so, next year you may not be in first, but if you go forward this year, there's a very high probability that you guys will get a community here.
And I was kind of wondering if any prelim scoring had already been done. I kind of thought that there was something at this point, so then all the other little clickers, credits from a scoring standpoint start coming in after that.
Yeah.
So on a timeline, if we go forward with this, what are we looking at to completion?
Sure. So, the full application will be submitted at the end of February, and we'll know within a couple of months whether we've remained in first, which we expect we will. The tax credits will be awarded in mid-July. We would start construction in March of next year, and it would take about 10 to 12 months to complete construction.
So you have already purchased the property?
We have an option to buy the property. We have it under contract. If we win, then we'll close on it. If we don't win, we won't close on
That's what I was wondering.
Well, and, kind of just to go back to what Elo was saying about the quality of the complex that we went to, those were 10 and 11-year-old projects. That's how old those complexes were. So even today, I'm sure that some of what we saw there won't be what we go into a brand new unit in, say, next year. But Alpha Barnes does manage a property in Hondo.
Yes.
And I actually had a chance to talk to the city manager there this morning, and so the conversation came up, and he said, that's a 10-year-old property, and my question to him was, do y'all see any difference in crime rate, police calls and such? And he said that another project was looking to come in, I think he was telling me last year, it was more geared toward senior. And, okay, so you know what I'm talking about? And it didn't, the land or something, he said there was an issue with the land, but that came up through all the dialogue, and he said we didn't see any difference in call ratios with that type property versus, I think they've got some market properties in Hondo. But he said their only negative connotation is that the fact that the people, we're not in the same boat you guys are. When you look at the housing and what's around, they're more lower middle income level. And so, he said the big knock was, well, don't make
Waiting
condo the center, or the, you know, the center point of, you know, that type of deal, so, but, you know, your toughest deal is really just, you know, getting the word out to your constituents and letting them know that, you know, it is a quality type project, so.
What does Caetano mean?
Thank you for that.
Caetano, it was basically, the nickname of my partner's father, who got both of us started in the real estate business.
So you're gonna buy this, or you have under contract, or you're looking at the whole, what is that, 10 acres about altogether?
Yeah, a little over 5 in the back part, actually about 6 is what it is, including the road, and then we will not buy the 2 front parts, those will be used as pad sites, excuse me, for.
So those will be they'll be, it'll have to be replatted, and those will be still with the owners?
Well, so the whole thing is already platted retail C1, and so they won't have to be replatted, they will just stay with the owner, so they will be 2 retail sites, and then this back area will also be a retail site that will have multi-family at the same time.
But all your company is purchasing is the back part.
Yes, ma'am.
And the easement for the road.
And, okay.
Any other questions, Mark?
How long has Caetano been around?
So, well, my partner's been, you wanna talk about that?
Sure. I've been in the real estate development business for almost 20 years now. My father, as Matt mentioned, started our company. We've been in, as managers in the affordable housing business for 3 years.
Okay, so you've been in this business for 3 years. How many facilities like this do y'all have?
So, we have 3 existing ones. Well, there's 2 owners in this. One thing you need to think about there is Caetano Housing, which owns 51% of the deal, and then Betco Development, which owns 49%. And so between Caetano and Betco, we have a total of 4 properties.
And Laura's with Laura.
Yes, I am Betco Consulting. I am the hub. I am the 49%. And we do have 3 properties that we started out. Betco Development started in 2006, and we were awarded, the first time we tried for this program, we got into it, and we did 3 pre-applications and 3 full applications, and we were awarded all 3. So we've had those properties. They are in the 95, I think our lowest was 95 at one point, but they're 98% occupied. Last year, we did a lot of consulting work, and we submitted 11 applications, which 10 were successful. So we do have experience with this program, and we know that it's a good quality program. I've worked in affordable housing so many years, and I started out with HUD programs. But when I came across this one, it was a little difficult